Right, good evening everybody, and welcome to Northampton Town Council Executive Committee meeting of the 18th of February at 6 o'clock. We have quite a long agenda tonight, so I hope you will find it interesting if you are watching on YouTube. Right, Maisie, do we have any apologies for absence?
No, Chair, we have not received any apologies.
Right, do we have any declarations of interest? No. Right, minutes of the last meeting. They are in the front of the pack that we have received. Can I take it that everyone has read the minutes and can we approve them? Are there any matters arising from them that you'd like to, or any inaccuracies that you'd like to have corrected as we speak? No?
I vote to approve them.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, on to item number 4, delegations to committees and officers. We have to look at the committees that we will recommend to be set up by the borough. Oh, sorry, I've had a bit of a day. By Northampton Town Council as we move forward in May. So, Richard, are you going to talk us through these committees and what they do?
Yes, happy to, Chair. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to direct you, rather than the report, to the Appendix A at the end, please. If members could kindly look at Appendix A of the report, which starts on page 8. If all members have that. The committee will remember that when the Town Council at its first meeting decided to appoint an executive committee to look after, on a temporary basis, the business of establishing the Town Council, you noted at that time that the Borough Council had recommended that your form of governance going forward should be that of a traditional committee system, one of 4 committees, with an overriding policy and finance committee. This report attempts to set all those proposals into more detail and look at those matters which would be reserved to the full council for decision and which matters could expeditiously be dealt with by the committees under delegated powers. As of those 4 committees, the first of a service nature is proposed to be the Planning Committee. Planning considerations, looking at planning applications, considering strategic plans, as well as highway matters, will be one of the key functions of the Town Council, and subject to the requirements for consultations of West Northamptonshire, which we haven't yet been advised of, but on the assumption of the Borough Council, it's likely there'll be a requirement to this committee to meet possibly every 3, maybe 4 weeks. So a regular meeting as the first one, the Planning Committee. The other 2 service committees proposed are Environmental Services and Community Services. This is looking at the full list of potential services that you considered at the last full council meeting, without prejudice to final decisions as to what may be transferred to the Town Council. I've looked at the list that you've considered for negotiation and attempted to allocate, hopefully with some consistency, those functions across the 2 service committees. And you'll see, I won't go through it in detail, happy to answer members' questions, but I've endeavoured to allocate all the functions together with normal activities of a town or parish council amongst those committees. The final committee, with overriding responsibility for managing the council's finance, the civic matters, the Guildhall, and all policy issues, is the Policy and Finance Committee. The matters that are referred to the full council decision are set out at the start of the appendix under item 1, the delegations, but in the preamble there's also a proposal suggested that in order to protect the interests of all members of the council who may wish to be involved, and to ensure that every town council has an opportunity to play a full role in decisions, it suggested that any committee, even if it has delegated powers to deal with something, can do, if it chooses, not to decide the matter, but merely to pass it as a recommendation to full council. So they have that option. And the other point is something that has been discussed at one of our informal meetings, the potential for any 3 members of a committee, once a decision has been taken to do something, 3 members of the committee could require that that decision is referred to the full council as a recommendation for further discussion for something they may wish. So 2 safeguards there for consideration exceptions to the delegated powers. With regard to membership of committees, it is suggested that each committee will appoint a chair and a vice chair, and the chair and vice chair of the 3 standing committees, that's planning, environmental services and community services, would all serve automatically as members of the policy and finance committee, plus other committee members. And you'll see the membership suggested, and the numbers that have been put there are a suggestion looking at the total elected membership of the council, 25 councillors as it will be after May, and giving each councillor 2 seats on a committee. That makes a total of 50 seats available, and you'll see how they've been suggested for allocation equally across the 3 service committees and slightly more onto the policy committee. I think, Chair, that's a quick summary of all the documents there. As I say, rather than go through it, it may be easier if I attempted to answer any members' questions, and I can see that some members have questions already. I noticed Councillor Hallam is here, and I haven't had a chance to speak to Councillor Hallam to ask which items he wanted to speak on. It clearly he's answered that by putting his hand up, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Right, Mike, good evening and welcome to the meeting. Do you have a question on the committee?
No, it was a comment on this actually. I think this is the right way to do it. Is to choose a committee system rather than an executive committee style system, and it was just a comment to say that I think this is the right way to go about it.
I would agree. I think it's very level. I think it's very everybody is accountable to somebody else, and I think that's a very good start. Jamie, Councillor Lane.
Absolutely agree. I love the fact that we know straight away each councillor is going to be sitting on 2 committees, so they know the workload straight away, so they're not duped into it. But we've got a situation sometimes at the moment where you've got one councillor sits on every committee and some councillors do no work at all. So this is great that it's going to be shared and fair. My only question is the allocation of those places. So who chooses which councillors sit on which committees and who chairs them? Is it going to be done as it is at the moment by political proportionality, or is it going to be some other system? I'm thinking with a parish council, you generally have more independent people sitting on it, and they may miss an opportunity as an interest in what they're interested in. That's my only question, is how these places are allocated.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, this is a recommendation to the council. When it comes to the allocation of who sits on, it will, of course, be a matter for the council to decide after the election. So we've got the elections on the 6th of May, and you've already decided that you will invite all the newly elected councillors to an informal meeting on the 11th of May for this very purpose, to decide then your method for allocating. And it may be that you'll choose to do it by political proportionality, but as you say, Councillor Lane, that we don't know who's going to be elected yet. may not have everyone in a political party. So the allocation system will be decided at that meeting, and then who sits where, and if you like, the trading between I would prefer to be on this one, you prefer to be on that. We have an informal meeting of the council to agree all those nominations so that we can hopefully put an agreed package to the annual meeting when they're formally appointed. Chairs are elected. And the chairs and vice chairs are elected by the members of the committee. So in process, we would start with the standing committees. Each standing committee would elect its chair and vice chair. This, of course, would be at the annual meeting in turn. And then those chair and vice chairs would automatically be members of the policy committee. So that would be their second committee. And then the others, members of the policy committee, would be decided subsequently, and then that committee in its turn at the end of the fall would elect their chair and vice chair. I hope that doesn't sound too complicated, but it's probably easier when you've got the names in front of you at the informal meeting to work through it.
I mean, my view on this is that you serve best on a committee if you are involved in something that you have expert knowledge of, that you are interested in, or that you wish to contribute to. So I think it's looking at people's skills, experience, and using all the elected councillors to the very best of, using their skills and experience in the best possible way. Thank you. Brian Markham, you had your hand up next.
I did. Thank you. Some of the questions I got was, one of the questions was going to be the chairs and deputies of those committees, how are they decided? I'm very pleased to hear that essentially it's for the committee to decide. I've always thought that's the right point. As far as allocation, I think it's going to be more a matter of when we've got 25 councillors, it'd be everybody expressing a preference and then see what there is. I think rather than because I've every hope that people will be like Jamie Lane said, they know what they're letting themselves in for, but I think there may be some who will not realise that the commitment. Just one point, I thoroughly understand why the finance and what's it called, policy and finance committee should have the chairs and so on of the standing committees in so much as, if you like, the committees that are doing so. I'm not quite sure about the need for the planning people to be on that as a matter of course. I'm not saying they shouldn't be there. I don't really see, given that, of course, we know that the chair of the planning and maybe the deputy chair, all the members of the planning committee are going to be probably the hardest worked people on the council, and it just doesn't seem any particular reason why the chair of planning and the deputy chair of planning should be on that committee. I'll just be interested in observations, because it's not carrying out the day-to-day running or implementation of council policies as such a planning committee.
If I could just come in there quickly, Brian, I think planning perhaps has, environmental services can be linked with planning. I think it gives an overview.
But with respect, we have the environmental committee and chair, and that which will answer those points. I mean, there is a link, but it didn't seem as necessary. And I just thought, given the possible workload of planning, but I'm not sticking on it, and it's just a comment or an observation to me.
Okay, maybe that's
perhaps
something
I may
we
comment,
looked at later.
Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
May I comment, Chair?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Whilst there's no service responsibility, direct service responsibility in the planning committee, there is a real possibility they will be considering major policy issues, and it's for that reason, because it's intended that the policy and finance committee would have control of the overall policies of the council, and in terms perhaps not necessarily of the town council's policy, but if there's to be a new local plan for Northampton, I would imagine that would be an extreme matter that the policy committee would want to have a role in, for example, in which case you would certainly want the chair and vice chair of the planning committee to be able to contribute to that discussion. So it wasn't relating to services, it was on the policy.
And thank you very much, Richard. I understand that. I assume that maybe if there's local plan, that would be discussed by the planning committee, as rather than. But I understand now that would go to the policy committee, and therefore that's the logic there. Yeah.
Thank you. Les Marriott, your hands is up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This brings back memory this. I think that probably Brian's the only other person who's ever served on committees. Most of the other councillors are all coming on the new structures with the cabinet structure. So this is a stepping back. And but one thing I'd like to do is really thank Richard bringing his usual expertise into setting this up. You know, it's a real good starting point going forward. I know people have got questions to ask in more detail about it operates, but I think that's going to be ironed out as time goes by. It's something that we need to make sure in the first year we start looking at more than anything else to make sure that it's working correctly. Because one thing that might be slightly missing from this is possibly some form of scrutiny, sort of overview of it. That's something we are used to now under the present structures. And I just wondered, given not only just this sort of document, but obviously we do need to probably look at that going forward and to scrutinise, make sure it's working, but also the operations of the committees, anything that comes forward. So I just wondered what Richard's view on that is. Is there any room for that? Is any other town council using forms of scrutiny to make sure it happens? But otherwise, I'll say it's a really good starting point and can't be critical of this because it's something that Richard's pulled together very well. Thanks.
On the scrutiny issue, if you would like me to comment, Chair.
Yes. I mean, I have my views. I can see how it works, but yes, just explain a little bit more about that.
The scrutiny function was introduced into local government when the executive system came in. It didn't exist previously, and one can argue: does one need to have a scrutiny function when all members of the council are already engaged and have an opportunity through the mechanism I just explained to play a part in decision making? Is there a need for a scrutiny? The committee system and the safeguards of referring any matters of controversy to the full council for decision perhaps overrides it. But I think Councillor Marriott is right. This will operate for a first year, and it will then be for the council to look and see, is this working well? Do we need anything extra? Is there something missing? Personally, I think you'll find with tweaks and perhaps with looking at what functions are dealt with by particular committees, there may be some changes, but the principle of this works well, I believe, in most of the larger councils. Some operate with just the main full council meeting and everything going to the full council and the full council meeting every 3-4 weeks. That's the most common alternative within the town council world. The powers to have executive cabinets, etc., not available to the town council anyway, so you can't operate that way. So the need for, if you like, an ordinary member of the council to have a right of scrutinising an executive decision perhaps doesn't arise anyway, because they all have a part to play as members of committees.
Thank you. And I understand that I'm just reading from in the Policy and Finance Committee to determine, to consider and make decisions on any matter referred to it by the council or other committees. So other committees can refer back to the Policy and Finance Committee for a more of a sort of scrutiny and an overview. Can I
come back in on it really? Because one thing I wouldn't like to see as a town council going forward is just to isolate yourself as councillors making those decisions. And one thing that scrutiny does well, and I know that Jamie's the chair that went on the borough, is actually bring other experts in on certain topics. So that's where I was actually more angling for, not only just to review what's going on, but is there some room for bringing that in? And is it the structure we got now, Richard? Can it actually do that, bring extra people in onto it?
Yes, I'm sorry, Chair, I was answering the wrong question. Not unusually. Of course, committees can do that. Indeed, you have already decided when you set your budget, you've asked the town clerk designate to report to committees on a full review of each service the council is going to undertake during the first year. So you're not going, so we'll be doing just that and having the opportunity of looking in detail at services. That review of, or if you like, scrutinising, we won't be just for a service that's transferred to the town council, it won't be just accepted that it will continue exactly as it is. You've already agreed that you want to have an in-depth review of how that service operates and are any changes necessary. And as part of that process, I'm sure individual committees would indeed want to invite some expert comments and other contributors to that debate.
Could I come back on that? No, sorry.
Jamie has his hand up, Brian. Can I bring you in a minute?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I think Richard answered that really well, because I don't think you need a scrutiny committee as it is, because as said, that brought in early 2000s, wasn't it, when we lost the committee system. You've got all the councillors making the decision jointly and voting on it in each committee. So that way it is scrutinised at that level. And then if you want to have some expertise brought in, as Richard said, you can bring people in to make presentations to each committee before the decision's made. So if any councillor isn't happy with the behaviour maybe of councillors in that committee, they can, a decision that's been made is jointly responsible. They can go to standards, couldn't it? So you don't really need a scrutiny committee at that level, but you can get the public in to address and make presentations. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I could come back on that, Jane.
Yes.
The point is, as Les said, he and I, if I remember with Jane, I've been a member of both systems, and I've also been a cabinet member as well. Under the cabinet, and of course, as a cabinet member, and indeed one time chair of planning, the briefing that the cabinet member gets and background information, why you need scrutiny is because nobody else gets that background information. Under the committee system, every member of that committee, and indeed every other councillor or member of the public that comes along to that committee, will also have all that background information, and the committee's there to discuss that all the details, which of course doesn't happen on most topics in the cabinet system or executive. So I agree. I don't think there's a role simply for scrutiny. The job of the committee is partly to scrutinise all the services all the time.
Mm-hmm. I think it's constant scrutiny, isn't it? And I think there's plenty of opportunity for all councillors to get involved in that. Les, did you want to come back on that? Or your hand is up.
No, I was just asking Richard's advice, really. So he's answered it because obviously Brian said he's been sort of a portfolio holder, so have I, but I was also chair of committees in the old system. And I do know that chairs of committees do also get more information than you probably actually do see in the public domain, Brian. So it isn't the case that everything's open, because sometimes it's not. So I'll take Richard's point. Obviously, if you're involving everybody and everybody's actively involved with the committee structure, it can work. But I was just more interested in making sure we brought expert advice in from the outside as well, to make sure that we cover ourselves in that aspect. And he's answered that question as well. Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay.
Councillor Hibbert was indicating, Chair.
Oh, it's sorry.
Yes.
Welcome, Stephen. I didn't see you.
You didn't spot me. And
I didn't spot you. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. It's partly because this blue hand system just doesn't seem to work for me. It's not there.
It's okay.
Tracy Tiff found it for me the other week, but it's gone again. So I don't know. I'm just looking at the whether there's any real need to extend the emergency powers beyond chair and deputy chair of the various committees, because in widening those powers to other members of the committee, aren't you actually indirectly isolating those councillors anyway, which is one of the points that's been made? And aren't you also creating a lack of scrutiny of emergency decisions by doing that? I would have thought allowing the chair and the deputy chair the power to make emergency decisions was far enough. There's no need to go beyond that, surely.
Richard.
Of course, it's entirely for your decision. It was simply that looking at it as an emergency, and for a town council, the council is unable to delegate anything to an individual councillor, but only to a committee or subcommittee. So the chair and vice chair, as you'll see from the note, shall be deemed to be acting as a subcommittee. And it's simply that if one of them, for an emergency, something of an emergency nature occurred, and one of them couldn't be contacted, it does give your clerk the opportunity to contact another member of the committee if there was an emergency. From my experience, I have to say, having had something very similar provision in the 20-odd years at another large council I was the clerk to, we never used this power at all, had it almost entirely, but it was there for an emergency. And for something that was urgent, it was always possible to call a special committee meeting. The emergency was simply where a decision had to be made there and then. If you can't get someone on the phone, another committee member might be available.
Okay, right. Any more questions? No. Are we happy then to move on with those agreements that those committees are proposed to the new council? And obviously there is still an opportunity to look at detail at a later stage. Yes, can we have agreement on that? Yes. Right, thank you very much, everyone.
So, Chair, thank you. That is obviously a recommendation, as you said, to the full council. There's the next question on this subject, just to familiarise members, will be looking at the timetable and see how often those committees will meet, and that will be another agenda item. Now you've decided, and hopefully the council will agree with you on the names and of the committees and their duties, we can then consider at the next committee meeting the frequency they need to meet and look at a draft timetable so that those coming into the election standing for candidature can clearly see the full level of commitment of committee meeting. There is, I'm afraid, Chair, another ancillary matter. I did circulate a short paper about planning applications as an ancillary to this item.
Yeah.
May I refer to that, please?
Yes, yes, please do. Yes, it's not in my original papers and I'm working to those.
Yes, apologies. It was something that came out, it's literally has arisen this week. The recommendations you've just made to the full council were assuming that the town council would start commenting on detailed planning applications after the May election. However, the Borough Council planning officers very kindly have this week started consulting you on all planning applications, and I'm now receiving copies of applications relating to the town council area. The point was made simply, now I have them, I have to report that fact to you and to seek your instructions on how you wish to deal with it. The suggestion in the additional paper I sent out yesterday was that as all members are currently members of the Borough Council and after the 1st of April will continue to be members of West Northants, the new planning authority, they have their own mechanisms through those memberships to raise concerns about and to play a role in planning matters, any planning applications that come up. Are you still content not to comment as a town council or to consider any mechanism of considering planning applications until after the election?
Is everybody happy to work with the present system that we are offered as present borough councillors? Nobody wants to start looking at separate planning. No, Jamie is shaking his head. This is agreeing. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm agreeing.
Yeah.
Chair, can I come in? I think my blue hand was still up from last time, but just make the point, because obviously up until the 1st of April, we've got borough councillors anyway. So it's not only this committee, but obviously the main body is actually made up of borough councillors. So those borough councillors will be getting a view of their own ward planning applications anyway. So they quite readily can do that. I know that will finish probably on the 1st of April. So it'll be only from April to May where there's that little gap. So I see no issue with actually wanting the town council as it stands now to actually get involved in that at the moment until after the elections.
No, I think so. And I mean, there is a 6-week gap, and Jamie, as Deputy Chair of the Planning Committee, can I just confirm with you that once we go into PERDA for the election, that planning committees meetings are suspended?
I believe that. It's been a long situation.
Sorry, that is not the case. I've been to a planning committee the night before the election. So, yeah. I'm not. I mean, how it pans out this time with the new authority in that anyway. But you know, no planning has to go on the 3 week. I think also the other point is that when we become members of the shadow new West Northampton, we will still, the West Northampton from the 1st of April will be dealing with planning applications, and as members of West Northampton Shadow Authority, we will still be consulted on any application that comes up in the ward.
Can I bring Laurie in here, please, Brian? Laurie, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
In effect, affected by PERDA because planning applications have to be decided. And it's for members, of course, at those meetings, and depending on what they're considering as a planning application or a planning issue, they will declare, well, their own interest or whatever it is, if they have an interest to declare. So that is the situation.
Thank you.
The planning committee will continue. It's not affected by PERDA.
Okay, thank you. That's clarification. Catherine. Councillor Russell.
Thank you. This is a question for Laurie. So Laurie, does that imply that we're still elected members up until the eve of the elections in May?
You have that golden rule. You are indeed.
Jerry, you're actually an elected member until 4 days after the election.
Yeah, that's right. You are indeed. And only the High Court of England can take that away from you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
on that point, I'm going to check. I don't think we've got any planning meeting dates in our diaries.
No, we haven't got any planning meetings.
You may not. You may not.
No. So I think we've avoided that that question. Right. Are we happy to move on to item number 5?
Sorry, Chair. So that's agreed. You won't be considering commenting on planning applications.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, item number 5, the mayoral allowance. This is to consider a recommendation to the council as the amount and the method of managing the town mayor's allowance. Now, there's a number of suggestions made in the report, and we have 3 former mayors, so they may have a view on this. And I think, Richard, do you want to just take us through the proposal, which perhaps is slightly different from the way this has been allocated in previous years?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly. The way in which the mayoral allowance has been dealt with by the borough has emerged over the years. The practice has changed, and the current practice, as I understand it, is that the mayoral allowance is paid half to the mayor directly under PAYE and half retained by the office to be allocated by the mayoral support officer according to the requirements of the council. And a separate but smaller allowance is paid to the deputy mayor. With regard to the town council, when the chair of the town council becomes the town mayor and the deputy chair becomes deputy town mayor on 1st of April, the rules are slightly different. Firstly, you cannot make a special allowance to a deputy. And practice has generally been amongst larger councils that there is an unwritten agreement that the mayor would always allocate a part of his or her allowance to function for the deputy. But members have already commented that the money you've placed in your budget, which is the sum total of the current allowances for both chair and for both mayor and deputy, £27,000, may be too great a sum because the area of the town council is smaller than that of the borough. The responsibilities of the mayor of the town are going to be slightly different to those of the mayor of the borough, and certainly different statutorily, that the sums to be expended are probably less. There's less requirement. It's impossible, however, until practice comes out, to anticipate what that reduction may be. So the suggestion is we continue the practice of the borough council, or the, if you like, the road route of the borough council, and to allocate the whole of the allowance to be held as a contingency budget by the civic and mayoral officer for the mayor's use, for the exclusive and unrestricted use by the town mayor of expenses incurred as a result of the office and in the normal way, and funds can be paid for directly by the council without the need of having to pass money through to the mayor and be subject to AYE. It's acknowledged that mayors will always from time to time need to make small purchases, whether it's for donations or tickets at events, from cash, and to overcome that, the suggestion is that as part of this principle, the mayor's officer will hold a small cash allowance, a cash float of £100, which can be reimbursed to the mayor. Say after a weekend, the mayor says, I had to spend 20 something pounds this past weekend. They give them the £20, a note is made, and at the next presumably monthly pay run of the account subcommittee, that sum is simply refunded. So it's continuing half of the principle of the borough council, but extending that to the whole sum. That therefore means you don't have to consider precisely how much. It doesn't mean you have to decide annually how much gets paid to the mayor personally. It makes a provision that the mayor can operate exactly as a mayor would today and have the freedom to arise expenses as may be necessary. If a mayor needed a new suit or a new hat, they could do so and be refunded from the contingency budget without restraint. And the town clerk could exercise discretion on the amount that the mayoral officer would be scrutinising. And those sums, I think in practice, it would work out very sensibly between the parties as to how the mayor would be supported. The intention is that there would be no constraints upon whoever would be the mayor or deputy mayor, and they could continue to function and provide the level of dignity for the office as you would expect through a budget that is managed from the office, rather than handing over cash to a mayor, which they would then have to account for to the taxman.
Okay, right. Mike, you've got a comment on this, would you, or question?
Yeah, it's a comment. I'm sort of publicly kind of stated this at the last council meeting, and it's a group position as well. A lot of the time in the past, political groups in various councils have used mayoral budgets or chairman's allowances to make political points in alternative budgets. I'm not saying anybody here has done it, but I know it's been done elsewhere, and they say, well, we'll reduce that instead because they get too much money. So you might expect us maybe that we'd hold that position now, but we really don't. So the Conservative group is absolutely adamantly against dropping the level of money in it. Even though it's a slightly smaller area, I really don't think that you can have the principal position of this council being saving the mayoralty and then we try to do it on the cheap. And my argument for keeping the level exactly the same as it is at the moment would be really simple. When Mrs. Smith's daughter contacts us from Duston to say that her daughter's got, she's really pleased that her mum's reached the grand old age of 100, and would the mayor go along and celebrate the birthday with her? what do we say? Do we say, oh no, sorry, you're not covered by our area at the moment, so sorry, we can't attend your birthday? In practicality, that's not going to work. So I think in practice, the mayoral area is going to be much the same as it is at the moment, even though it's only us that's paying for it, because I just can't see how we can say, sorry, Mrs. Smith, you can't have your mayor because you live in Dustin. It's not going to be seen that way, and I don't want it to be seen that way either, because I want it to be seen as mayor of Northampton. So I think the Conservative group position on this is really, really clear and really simple. We don't support any reduction at all from what it's at the moment. We think it should be retained at exactly the same level, and I appreciate Richard's comments about how that might be cut up and the ways of processing it, but in terms of the amount, our position is really clear. It should be the same as it is at the moment.
Okay, and are you happy for the deputy mayor to have, it's been suggested that it's a 10% of the mayor's allowance?
Yeah,
for the leaves?
we would be happy with that as well, because we want to retain the whole thing as it fits at the moment, which is having an adequate person to deputise. You know, in normal, I think we need to think about this as in normal times, and Brian and Les and Jamie will comment better than me, but there'll be lots of times at certain times of the year where the mayor simply can't get round to everybody. You know, thinking of Remembrance Sunday perhaps, or in the run up to Christmas, and they need that deputy, and that deputy needs adequate support as well. So we're absolutely crystal clear in our support that it should be at the same level, however it might be cut, whether that's giving some to the mayor to then give to the deputy. I think it needs to be cut at the same level as it is at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we have three mayors former mayors wanting to speak here. Brian, I'll take you in order.
Thank you. I unmuted, yes. I think actually the mayoral allowance and the deputy, the two added together, will prove more than adequate under the new system. I fully agree with the point Mike Allen made about it's not just not going to happen that, you know, somebody in Dustin, somebody's 100 years old, or there's a home to visit, or somebody where there's a resident is 100 years old, and we're going to turn around and say, no, the mayor's not coming to you, I'm sorry. In fact, I went to a nursery in Pittsford and so on. So, you know, you don't, but I also think that the role will sadly change. It has changed legally already, and I think, and I'm pleased that the way the use of the budget has been expressed by Richard, I think it explains how it can be used. It has been unclear, but when I got it, and it changed afterwards, I was given quite a lot of money, well, 2 lots of money during the year as expenses, and then I thought, you know, go and spend it on suits and topping up the mayor's parlour with beer and whatever else, and less than clear of what I was contributing to, and no real accounting system. And I think this way of doing it will prove useful, because we then can look at the end of the year.
Yes.
Was it enough? Yes. Was it too much? Or in fact, do we need more? So well, I think it's a very good system.
Yeah, and I think it is accountable, it is transparent. Jamie, as a former mayor, what's your view?
Thank you. I'm all for it. I think it's a fair way of doing it. When I was mayor, I had my allowance paid to me monthly, which was handy. But the mayor does have to fund lots of things that you probably not aware of. I mean, Mike gave the example of visiting that 100-year-old. The mayor is expected to take a gift. And when I was mayor, I did the same for Les and Brian. But when I was mayor, I was told I had to take a silver picture frame as a gift. Now, if that's still the case, then if we're controlling the mayor's budget centrally, it means that the council could buy in a bulk supply of silver picture frames, which would be cheaper in the long run for us to go out and present those 100-year-old ladies and gentlemen. And also it's consistent as well, so that everybody will get the same. So I think it's a good control of the budget. There are things, as was mentioned, you do go to dinner dances where you're expected to buy raffle tickets. You're expected to buy things. My only concern there is, are we going to limit the mayor to how much they can spend in raffle tickets at these functions? Or do you get a mayor that might throw the money away, say, I have £200 worth, you know? So that's my only concern, is there a limit on the raffle tickets?
Well, depends if they win a prize, doesn't it? And then
But that always goes back, doesn't it? Draw again.
Yeah.
It
I
was,
understand.
it was always embarrassing.
wants to-
Irene always won. Irene always used to win the prize. So I always felt embarrassed because
Thank
every
you,
time
thank
we
you.
bought tickets.
Brian, Les Marriott. Les, come on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The reason why I'd like to come on this one really is because obviously, unlike Jamie and Brian, fair enough, like Jamie, I was paid monthly by the allowance, but unlike Brian and Jamie, I was taxed. I was the first mayor to have it taxed, and I think it changed the year after me, the way in which the council virtually operates now. So I do understand this business about taxation. I do understand as well what Jamie's saying about when you go out, you know, the gifts that people expect. Floral tributes are one thing, you know, that's an area that you have to look at as well. So there's so many different things that the mayor gets involved with, as much as anything else. One thing that I'd like to say as well, like this year, and I take the point that Mike says, but I don't think our group is actually being political on this and insisting, like Mike obviously come in as the leader of the Conservative group, and we're not looking at it that way. We look at it as the practicalities of the job. And I think Richard has explained really the actual role and function of the new mayor is slightly different to the old function, you know, the mayor of Northampton. So we'll just have to wait and see this first year to see if they do get invites to the 100th birthday, or whether it's going to be the chair of the West Northants, unfortunately, you know, that actually gets invited, because that'll be the first, what you might call, what we have got now, the first citizen of Northampton, which is the mayor of Northampton now, but it will become slightly different in the future. So we just have to wait and see. I think this is a good way of going the first year to gauge what we're doing. And really, we have got the person in the office, and we've got the new town clerk that will be actually overseeing it to make sure whoever the mayor is, I know it's going to be with you the first time, which is a good thing. But you might find that other future mayors, as we've seen in the past, are different characters. So that'll be down really to make sure that the town clerk, as well as the mayor's officer, actually make sure that they actually operate in the correct manner and don't go over the top with spend or anything like that. As for the deputy mayor, then obviously there needs to be an allowance to the deputy mayor, because they do deputise for the mayor on occasions. So that needs to be there. But what we shouldn't be doing, and I totally agree with Mark Allen on this, we shouldn't be skimping this first year. We just wait and see to see exactly how it goes. And I think that's what it's all about, really. Okay,
thanks, Les. Stephen, you had a comment or question.
Yes, I think
Your hands up.
I think I'm in favour of this half and half split, despite the dangers of PAYE. I think we have to understand some people might be quite sensitive to criticism of what they spend the money on, and at least if you go down that route, they've got a free hand and can choose to get 3 suits from Aldi or one from Made to Measure. You know, these things might crop up in somebody's mind, so I think I'm in favour of the half and half split.
I would imagine whatever way it's done, there has to be, you know, some accountability for the spend of the mayor. If they're given, you know, 50% of that allowance on as soon as they become mayor, there still has to be accountability for it. I don't know how this works, but I would hope that there wouldn't ever be any reluctance.
Can I come back in? And I have some sympathy with what Stephen says there, but this will be down to the clerk and Chris, because if you've got a full-time job, and I'll be honest with you, the mayoral duties don't come up just in your own spare time, they come up during the working day. And that's one thing I found very difficult when I was doing the mayoralty, particularly as being taxed, was also having to make sure that I was given 18 days, which was good, 18, 20 days from my company for doing the sort of functions, but some people are not. So I think that's something that needs to be borne in mind. If the people actually are losing income by doing it, then obviously that needs to be something that's factored in at some stage, you know. So I do take what Stephen says, and something I probably should have mentioned, the fact that, you know, you do actually have to look at the mayoral function isn't just an evening meeting function or anything like that. It is some of it daytime in their own time. So if they're losing income on it, then I think that's something that probably needs to be factored in some way or another in the first year.
That's an interesting point. I don't think anybody's thought of that to that extent. Is this something we have to decide on now, Richard, or will it be for the newly elected councillors?
Well, the new council can, of course, change anything, but we're starting the chair, Councillor Ashraf, will become mayor on the 1st of April. So you do need to decide something tonight.
Indeed.
And I was simply suggesting a method that could apply from 1st of April. This is entirely for you. Councillor Hibbert has made a suggestion. Perhaps might I suggest, Chair, if Councillor Hibbert wants to move that and see if there is a seconder for 50-50, and then you could proceed from there.
I'll do that, Chair. I'm happy to move.
So is that proposed? Is that seconded?
With Brian. I think Brian is waving, yes.
In which case, Chair, do you want to
second it? I'll second it, yes. Yeah.
Unless if there are any other speakers, Chair, to the motion that it be 50-50 split, and that would apply proportionately as from 1st of April for Councillor Ashraf. If there are no speakers, you need to vote. The committee needs to vote how you would recommend the council, and this again is a recommendation to the council on 1st of March, how you would wish to propose. So it's been proposed and seconded that the mayoral allowance be allocated 50% directly to the mayor and 50% held within the office by the staff for mayoral use.
Right.
We vote.
Is that all in favour of that proposition then, Chair?
That's 4, I think.
Looks carried.
And against?
I think I'm against that.
So, Chair, that is carried by 4 votes to 2.
Right.
So that is a recommendation to the council that everything else in the report, I take it, is acceptable to members. Everybody has spoken in favour of the principles. It's just that allocation.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. That's fine.
Can I just ask Richard on he says everything else in the report. I'll just mention. We haven't discussed whether there's a chaplain or not.
I was coming to that, Chair. I was merely talking about the allowance.
No, okay. Thank you.
Right.
Well, Chair, I was now going to mention to you that the second part of this report did ask you whether you wish to recommend to the council that the town mayor be invited to maintain the custom of annually appointing a chaplain who by nature would lead the council in prayer at the start of its meetings, starting with the annual meeting in May.
I think, is this something that we would ask Rufia to speak on? Is this going to affect her?
By all means,
yes.
Chair, if you wish to.
Yes. Rufia, Councillor Ashraf.
To continue with the chaplain to be present and to open the meeting with a prayer. I'd like to continue with that, please. Thank you.
Right. Is there somebody that you would have in mind? Because I think in the past, some mayors have had members or representatives from different faiths at each meeting. Is there somebody that you would have in mind to propose at this point?
I think I'd like to approach different faiths at different meetings. So I'd probably like to contact NIF, as they are our representative in the town, and hopefully they will provide us with the right people.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Chair, if you agree, and if the committee agrees to invite the mayor, then we can assist the incoming town mayor in advising on her decision how it will proceed. The mayoral officer has good experience of this, and will be happy to discuss with the Mayor and work on her behalf with whoever she wishes to approach, rather than make an announcement in a public meeting this evening without having first spoken to the person.
Yes, I think with reference to the Interfaith Forum, you will be able to work out a schedule, if you like, and invite people in from the various faiths.
Yes, I'd like to do that.
Thank you. That's another decision. Right.
The Chair, I had raised my hand.
Yes, Brian.
On this. I was surprised to see this on here. I have to make an admission. Nobody noticed. When I was mayor, I didn't appoint a chaplain. There were no prayers at the meetings, and nobody commented. I'm sure people noticed, but so it's a matter of. But I'm all in favour of any mayor that wants to appoint somebody or invite somebody to come along to the meeting, but I do think it's unnecessary for it to be part of the council standing orders, if you like, or whatever it is. We have to have a resolution to say that either that the mayor can do that, or that they must do it, or that they should do it. So I'll just make my point.
Yes, I take your point absolutely, and I think it is a matter of personal choice. And Councillor Ashraf has considered it and has decided that she'll consult the Interfaith Forum. So I think that's the decision that she's taken. And absolutely, if other mayors, subsequent mayors, do not wish to do that, that is their choice. But I think this is a very personal decision of the mayor. Right. Can we move on to item number 6, council allowances, and we are asked to note the process the council for the council to consider in this matter, and this is being considered by a panel of independent remuneration panel led by Mr. John Cade. And he has been deliberating with his panel and will report back to the meeting on the 1st of March. So I don't know if we need to do more than just note that that has taken place, Richard, and that Mr. John Cade will report back on the 1st of March to the full council.
Yes, exactly that, Chair. I haven't seen the report as yet, but I'm told we will have it in time for the debate at the council meeting. And as you said, Mr. Cade has indicated, has spoken to me and said that he does intend to present his committee's report personally to the council, and will be happy to answer members' questions on whatever his recommendation is.
Right, thank you very much. On to item number 7, the transfer of property and services. And I don't know if, sorry, Marion, I didn't introduce you earlier. Marion Goodman is here, our town clerk. And I think, Marion, do you have anything to update us on, Marion, or is it still as we are expecting?
It's still as reported last time. Thank you, Chair. Myself and Richard have a meeting tomorrow with West Northampton Unitary, to discuss further.
Right, thank you.
I think Laurie's going to update you from the borough perspective, Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Laurie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There is a cross-party working group meeting next Wednesday, the 24th at 11, and I think you will be present there, Jane.
Yes, I will.
Edwina is preparing a report on negotiations to date and how they wish to move forward. It will be on a lease arrangement. She has been negotiating with officers of the WNC, the West Unitary Authority, Northamptonshire Council. I have not yet seen that report. I'm told I'll probably get it tomorrow afternoon, in which case I'll probably then have more information. But certainly it will be a full report, and I think we have to wait until as soon as the report comes out. I'm hoping the agenda for the cross-party working group will be sent out tomorrow. If necessary, Edwina's report, if it's a little bit late, may have to be sent separately, and that will be done on Monday morning, so members will have a chance to see it.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurie.
Negotiations have been going well, and we just have to wait and see what's being produced.
Right. I think it's, yes, we're all looking forward to hearing what that report contains. I mean, the transfers already agreed are the allotment sites within the town council area, the mayoralty, which we have discussed, and the closed churchyards, which we are again waiting for some sort of report or estimate of, you know, any costs involved. Although I understand that most of those costs are still with ID Verdi for the next 8 years.
Yes, I may interject there. It's not proving easy getting this information. And certainly would welcome Marion's help on this if we can, because I find great difficulty getting the information on this. But we need to have it. I mean, you've got to have it. But yes. One of the other issues, just for information, that is going to the cross-party working group is the final. It may not be the utterly final list that goes forward to the cross-party working group, because they may have other meetings, but we think we've got a pretty final list on the whole transfer of muniments and artifacts associated with the mayoralty. So we are certainly, the cross-party working group will be receiving a report on that and a full list with photographs on that, and then Richard can then report that, of course, to the Northampton Town Council.
Right.
There are an awful lot of items.
Right. Can I just ask you, Laurie? Obviously, all the mayor and the muniments associated with the mayoralty and the heritage of the Guildhall, who is responsible for the insurance on that? Because, you know, there are some extremely valuable items in amongst.
Yeah. At the moment, the Borough Council is responsible for the insurance of those items. But what I was thinking, and I think Richard's probably got a proposal for insurers to actually take that over, the insurance cover over, but certainly our existing insurers would probably provide a number of months cover if that was necessary.
Right, so while insurance quotes are being sought, all those valuable items will still be insured.
Yes.
Thank you. Right. Are there any questions or comments on the transfer of, it is the Guildhall or the areas of the Guildhall that would be transferred to the Town Council? The allotments, the mayoralty obviously, and the closed churchyards, they're the ones that have been agreed.
Yes. I think on that, if I may say so, Chair, I think the issues relating to that and their takeover may take us beyond the 31st of March of this year, but they will definitely be transferred, because it's not just the Town Council, of course, it's Far Cotton and Delaprey and King's Thorpe councils as well.
Right, thank you. Les, you have your hand up there.
Can I come in on really, because I'm concerned to hear certain sort of talk about different parts of the Guildhall being retained or left over. Now, when will these items, particularly the transfer of things like the Guildhall, will we have a chance to look at that? Because, you know, what I want to make sure is that as a town council, new town council, we don't get bushwhacked in one way by West Northampton actually giving straitjacket to us with accommodation that we don't want, or accommodation we need extra of. So I just need to understand when we're going to be able to discuss this, so we can actually determine whether it's what we want. You know, I understand you've got a working party next week, but the actual decision to be made will be from the executive and the body of the actual the town council. So I just wondered if we are going to have an opportunity and when it's going to be to actually look at what's being proposed to see if we agree with it.
You will certainly have that opportunity, and I see no reason why the decision, of course, of the cross-party working group next week, or the report they receive, will not also come to you.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, it has to.
Brian, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I did. The closed churchyards, the Guildhall, and sorry, let's see, allotments. Excuse me. Early discussions were were about market and possibility community centres. Excuse me. Where are we with those? Yeah.
Right. Those are items that we have agreed in principle to transfer. They haven't been agreed, but the principle to transfer them has been agreed, and they are items that we will be looking at. And these are obviously, this sits at the moment with West Northants Unitary, and it will be down to negotiations as we move forward. And it may take some time. It may not be something that comes as a job lot. And it may be that these items, we have to decide on them, because obviously community centres, for instance, they are an asset, but they're also a huge liability. So the decisions have to be made very carefully. And again, as Laurie says, even the ones that have been agreed probably won't be transferred by April the 1st. And I suspect that these later ones that we have agreed in principle on may be transferred, at a later stage, in stages, as we feel the need for it. Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Councillor Russell, I think, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. Thank you. Have all the community shops, which are usually around the community centres, have they all been transferred into a different style of ownership, or will they become as part of the community centres?
As far as I know, all community centres have a very clearly defined boundary, and it is usually just the building. If there's a car park attached, that is part of the enclosure, and that but I don't know of any community centre that has shops attached. I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong on that, but none of the ones that I would imagine the shops are under, are leased to the shop owners.
I think you're right, Jane. Yeah.
No, that is the case, Chair.
Thank you. Right.
Chair, may I make a comment, please?
Yes. Yes.
Firstly, you're of course correct that it's unlikely all these matters will be speedily resolved. And one point I made in the agenda report is a proposal that we convene a special council meeting for the 29th of March at 6 o'clock for this very purpose, to consider at that moment what is the latest position with regards to the ongoing negotiations, so that you're in a position to take whatever decisions you are able to take at that date prior to transfers on the 1st of April. And the second comment I would make before you decide on that point is that you have already agreed at the last council meeting that should any transfers be agreed in principle, but the detail be unable to be completed in time for the 1st of April, then the existing arrangements for delivering that service would continue under a service level agreement between this council and West Northants, so that there's no change in the service. And clearly that's an important part of the ongoing discussions at both officer and political levels.
Yes, yes, absolutely, Richard. And I think it's important to note as well that once the negotiations or the discussions or the conversations have started over the agreed in principle transfers, at a later stage, it's much easier to open those negotiations with the unitary authority in a subsequent way. If we start the negotiation or start the discussions now, negotiations are much easier as the unitary is vested past April the 1st. We already have an opening to move forward on those. Okay.
So, to Chair, the committee are happy for a special council meeting to convene.
I think I don't think anyone would object to that, because I think there's a lot to squeeze into the short time that we have before April the 1st. Right, on to item number 8. We've got information technology and accounting software. Now, Richard has done a tremendous amount of work on searching quotes, estimates, and costs for the setup of the office for the town council. Richard, do you want to quickly run through this? Everyone has had these papers, so yes. I think to tell us really what it is we're going to be needing, and the cost of these services.
Yes, Chair. The requirement, there's a number of requirements we have in this general field. The first is you need to acquire some suitable financial software, and there are various proprietary ones. You have appointed Marion as your town clerk and responsible financial officer, an area in which she has not previously had direct experience, although clearly has a great experience in managing budgets and services. In the particular requirements, particularly on reporting and statutory reporting roles of being what in the Borough Council is termed a Section 151 officer, and in Town Councils the same role is called a responsible financial officer, but it's the same statutory provisions. Acknowledging that, as part of the contract for Marion's appointment, you agreed to provide with her accountancy support for those roles, at least for the first year, and you've reserved the position as to whether you will appoint a separate RFO in year 2, and you decided to defer on that at your previous committee meeting. So there's a need to appoint someone to support Marion and to provide all the statutory requirements of reporting. We then need an IT system with email addresses for councillors, along with staff, and to have any staff who are transferred to have their data transferred to a secure place. And finally, you need a telephone system. Now, these could be dealt with separately, but I've endeavoured to produce a package report that provides the best value for the council, and starting with the principle of the support for the RFO role. And the proposals that are before you are a package, and they are interlinked. You can't really pick and mix. If the council is happy with this approach, then the company principally proposed, Microshade, it is their managing director who would be also appointed as your accountancy advisor, your financial advisor. That person, Mr. Wilbur, has great experience in this field. I've had personal experience of working with him with another council, and you can see that he provides exactly the same service as being proposed here to Weston-super-Mare Town Council. And Mr. Wilbur also acts as accountant to Leighton Linslade Town Council, and you can see the statutory roles he would be performing, as well as the acquisition of a particular accounting package that actually Mr. Wilbur personally designed but doesn't own now. It's owned by a different company, RBS Realtors. That's an Omega, for those who are interested in the detail, an Omega-based financial system, which is used by the majority of the larger town councils. It's a well-used and well-known system. He's also introduced, that's Microshade, have introduced to us a telephone system, a Horizon system, and both these, the telephone and the IT system, are cloud-based. And so there will be no hardware required in the town hall, in the guild hall. It will all be based on the cloud, and actually in Plymouth Science Park, so that anyone going onto the system, whether that be an officer or councillor, would log onto the system and would have access to whatever information is available at the particular level, and that would be available to them and secure. And the For example, a councillor who had a tablet will be able to access all the information. You don't have to have memory on the actual hardware that you're using to view the information. The information is held elsewhere. So that's a practical system. We've endeavoured to test these prices against the borough council's providers, and the IT manager has had a look at the quotes, and you'll see from the report as indicated to Marion that they can't match these prices. It's based on MS Office. It's not Office 365 that you members are just becoming used to. It's the system you were previously used to, Office 365. I think that's a general view of where it is. I don't want to bore members by going through the detail. Members have it, but I'll be happy to answer questions on the detail rather than spend time this evening going through each item.
Thank you very much, Richard. Stephen, you have a question.
My original question was previously what was going. I'll deal with it now because we can. We talked about having a new meeting on the 29th of March. What I was going to ask was, does that require us to move the executive meeting a bit closer to that date to give them more time to deal with these matters of transfer of property? Or is the 15th of March still going to be a suitable date?
I think the answer is yes. I think the March 15th gives a 2 weeks in between, and hopefully we can have an update and really answering Councillor Marriott's question. Hopefully we will have something to report on the 15th, and then if you don't like it, we have a chance to go back so that the council on the 29th, well, potentially has the chance to make a final decision. But there's the opportunity at least.
That's fine. If the 15th is doable, yes, that's
yeah,
fine.
That's the idea, sir. Yeah.
Yes. On the subject of the IT, I was going to ask about: is there a need for connectivity with other authorities like the unitary? I'm aware that there have been problems in the past when you have systems that just don't talk to each other, and sometimes there's a need for that to happen. I'm not entirely sure there's a need here between the town council and the unitary, but there might well be. Has that been considered? Is that built into it?
Yes, there is compatibility, and the only example I know currently is in terms of planning, and there are a number of councils, and I know this happens in with this system in Weston-super-Mare, where there is a direct compatible link between the planning information of the planning authority and the consultative information of the town council, so that they're not having to keep retyping all the same information details, and they can be shared. So that's the only example I know currently. I think in Northampton's case, they may well be, because of the range of services we're talking about, there could well be shared information similarly, but there's no reason, as far as I'm aware, of an inhibition to that compatibility, as far as I'm aware.
Catherine, you've got your hand up.
On the question of compatibility, there's a possibility that our councillors will need some sort of case management software. I don't know what West Northants is going to give to elected members to manage their casework, but it would be useful to know, or it would be useful for our new town councillors to have access to that as well.
There are add-ons. There's nothing included here. There are all manner of add-ons capable, of course, and we could add to this. This is a system, and I've mentioned some, and I wanted, after the committee have considered the principle and to add the extra detail of Modern Gov. There is a system that we're currently meeting under at the moment that the Borough Council uses for managing its meetings, and I thought it would be something that you would want to see added in to this until I saw the price of it. And you'll see from the report that that particular add-on is quite expensive. And so I was questioning whether perhaps we would just make use of normal Zoom and Word information documents at the moment, rather than use Modern Gov, which is, as you'll see from the report, quite expensive if you were to add that to it. But in answer in terms of other add-ons, and I think digital mapping will be one that will be the office would need to move straight away. Place management, certainly, yes, you can, but they're not included currently.
Richard, the advantage to, sorry, a supplementary, the advantage to having some sort of case management software is that it enables or should enable the councillor to have a link to the electoral register. And that helps when it comes to determining where people live and making sure that they are a registered not voter, but resident. That's the only other criteria, really.
Yeah, I understand the system. I just don't know. I haven't included for it here or sought information on it. And I see the Modern Gov would cost £9,000 in year one, and then 7,250 following on. And I think at the moment you would probably not wish to expend that money and to see how matters progress during your first year of operation. That didn't seem to be something you'd want to jump into.
I think we need to identify the need for it and exactly what it is that we need to do.
Yeah, it's more than the rest of the system put together. That seemed rather over the top.
Right. And one of the things I do think is worth checking up on, Richard, is that that we do connect with the unitary systems, because the unitary, as I understand it, they're very keen to set up sort of neighbourhood groups, which would include parishes and town councils, as well as the unitary councillors. So it's the neighbourhood working, the more localised meetings and sharing of information that, with the unitary councillors, that certainly the West Northants governance seems to be keen to follow up.
Thank you. I'll discuss that if you agree with Microshade, and I'll ask them to contact West Northants and look at compatibility.
Yeah, because I think that sifting down of information from the unitary to the local level will be very, very important to keep the connectivity and the feeling that we are part of a bigger group and that we have access to all of the information that the unitary is putting out as well. Brian, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, well, first of all, my understanding, I mean, I've used modern.gov for a lot and gives a link to everything I need on the Borough Council. But my understanding was moving to Cloud 365 with with the new unitary wasn't. Eventually, modern.gov will go the same way so I don't think that's necessary to explore that. But yeah, I agree entirely. We want seamless connection with the new systems, whatever they are at the unitary. Although it looks as though the cost of joining 365 is out of the question, really.
Well, there may be a way around that. I think it's something to investigate, Richard. Thank you.
Happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you. Right, so where are we on
well,
this?
I'm asking, Chair, are you willing to authorise me, Marion, to conclude the agreement with Microshade, with RBS Realtors and with the telephone company Horizon, as indicated in the report?
I think they're tried and tested. They're fit for purpose, and it's something that will get us up and running in the first instance. And as we said earlier, that things can be altered and changed, and maybe there might be something that is more fit for purpose at a later stage. But is everybody happy that we go ahead with those services?
I think Councillor Marritt's trying to speak, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
No, I've got no problem going ahead on that. The one thing you got down here, Richard, is telephone numbers, and clearly what we need is a recognisable and easy to remember number.
Right.
So when you look at that, quite a number there actually. When you got like the 1177s or 7766s or whatever. So I'm not sure, you know, the problem is when you have a committee decision on these things, everyone's got a different idea, but it's got to be easily to remember as much as anything else. So my personal preferences are the 1177 or the 7766 on the end. But, you know, just over that. So
thank you.
I want to leave it to you to deal with. That's the main thing. You know?
Yeah, and hope they're still available since this was written.
Yeah.
I had a favourite, Richard. It was 636353.
Oh, right.
So I mean, committee decision, but you know, to me that the easier numbers are the double numbers to remember. I know that from experience working for telecom for 40 odd years.
Oh, good. Okay. It's whatever.
Yeah.
It's whatever rolls off the tongue. I think when you're, when you're giving somebody your phone number.
I'll let Marion decide.
Yes, I think
I'm going to cop out of this one.
Your first executive decision, Marion.
Good idea. We'll blame Marion.
It's above my pay grade, Chair.
Right. So on to item number 9, we have the Freedom of Information Act and the Publications Scheme. So this is to do with freedom of information.
Yes, Chair, this is a statutory requirement. Again, as with the delegations, I've simply taken the assumption that everything that was on your wish list of services has already been transferred. It's not prejudicing future negotiations. It's merely anything that you may hold relating to those services and indicating in a form which you have to publicise how that information can be accessed. And as you will see, basically everything will be on the website.
Right.
But that's for your adoption, please. You can, I believe this is within the realms of delegation to this committee. It's a procedural matter for you to approve, please.
Has Stephen, are you casting your eye over this? You're muted.
Yes, let's get on.
Are you happy with this? Can we say we agree with this? Goes on the website. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's.
Thank you.
Full
Chair,
agreement on that.
On the back of that, this item, Chair, may I remind the members of the committee that they all, well, a number of you volunteered to look through existing policies which had been approved at the first council meeting. At your next committee meeting in March will be an agenda item to confirm those policies which have been reviewed by the members indicated, and it's a polite reminder to those members who volunteered that if there are any aspects following their review that they wish to bring forward to the committee, perhaps they could kindly let me know about 5-6 days, working days, prior to the 15th, please. Otherwise, I'll assume that they're all happy with the documents as currently on the website. I know you, Chair, are looking at the staff handbook, which hasn't yet appeared on the website.
I do have a copy that you've forwarded to me.
Yes,
there.
and we'll be presenting that to the next meeting on the 15th.
Right. So on to item 10, payroll services. And I think we've approached the CVS organisation that is actually based in Northampton. And I think you've been quite impressed with the service they offer and the cost of that service, Richard.
It seems a very good deal. I think it's extremely advantageous. Marion has kindly checked. The West Northants are not able to offer a price to you for this evening, but we have looked at the Leisure Trust and they've come up with a quote which is slightly over double that which is before you from the CVS.
Mm-hmm.
It may be, and I was suggesting, Chair, for a year's contract that once you're established and possibly with your own RFO, and the council have capacity to do it in-house, but it isn't a great deal of expenditure, and it's something you want to ensure that you do pay on time to whatever staff you may have.
I mean, I have experience of working with them. They're based in Hazelwood Road. They're on the phone, very, very accessible, and they are incredibly efficient and very responsive. So that You know, everything is done, P60s, everything.
Is
all
this
the-
a delegated decision for tonight, or is it going back to the
I'm
council?
taking it this is not a policy decision. This is
Right.
a matter to be delegated, like opening a bank account. It's a mere conduit. It isn't a particularly expensive item. It falls well within the parameters for delegation to me, actually, under the financial regulations. But
can I just propose that we accept the recommendation as
Yes, good. Right, thank you. I can't see
members are
any
indicating
objections to that.
approval, Chair.
No. Thank you very much. That's.
Could I just mention, Chair, here that the deal, obviously, they will be paying. They will be actually paying the cash, so we will have to have a payment to them first, so that there will be, again, at the next meeting, I'm filling out the agenda now, we'll need to decide how we deal with the payments, particularly this first staff payment to CVS before our new unified system and account subcommittee comes in after May. So there'll be that temporary period. How do we authorise payments during the 6 weeks? But I'll bring a report to you at your next meeting to deal with that, so that we can make sure that the money is paid. The contract is that CVS has the cash a week before they pay it onto the staff.
Right, thank you. There's no other comments. And number 11 on the agenda, the transfer of the coat of arms, which perhaps you can tell us what is happening in that area, Richard.
Well, I'm delighted to say I know Her Majesty has many personal things on her mind at the moment, but within her box will very shortly be the council's formal petition, which the Chair, Councillor Ashraf, and the Vice Chair have signed, and is now somewhere between the office of the Earl Marshal and Her Majesty. And hopefully Her Majesty will be pleased to concur and to award the coat of arms by licence to the Town Council on the 1st of April. So thank you very much, Councillor Ashraf. She signed it earlier this week.
Wonderful.
I thought members might be interested to see the form of the wording of the petition. I thought you might like to see it, which is why it's appended, merely for interest.
Right, thank you. Oh, is that part of our document pack, Richard?
Should be the last item, hopefully, the wording.
Is it? I've got so many bits of paper here. Oh yes, to the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty.
Yes, that's our petition.
A humble petition of Rufia Ashraf.
Yes, Rufia's humble petition has been passed to Her Majesty.
Well, I think that's probably quite a historic moment. So we wait for Her Majesty to either agree or decline. Does she have a choice?
Well, it's not many of her subjects who write personally to Her Majesty and are read personally by Her Majesty, but Councillor Ashraf and Councillor Meredith are in that very small percentage of people who can honestly say they've done that.
Right. So,
it is of course a sad moment in some ways for the borough council. Great moment for the town council, but a sad moment for the borough.
I think it's the beginning of a new era, next stage, isn't it? And
well, it's interesting to see that the current coat of arms has been in place since I know it's in earlier forms, but since 1619. The exact form that the borough is using today, and we shall be using as from 1st of April, has been operating for 500 years.
So, right. Do we have any other business? Stephen?
Yeah, I just to point out one thing I've always been curious about. Once it's transferred to the town council, are we able to license it for use by other parish councils around it?
Other parish councils, I don't know the answer to. I thought I knew what you're going to say, Councillor, but I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure. I'll have to find that out. Certainly, you could agree not to raise objections to local organisations who you believe represent your area. So you wouldn't particularly give it to, say, a particular scout group, but you could give it to the Northampton Scouts Council or whatever was the umbrella body for representing the whole town. So you could allow the town cricket club to have it, perhaps, or the an organisation that clearly represented the community. But passing it to another parish council, I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. And I suppose the point would be also, why would they want to? They might want to have their own identity, but allowing them to use the town crest, I don't know. I'll have to research it and come back to you, if I may.
Please do.
Les, you had a
hand up. If you're on any other business, this is away from this item, but what I'd like to know, I should have raised it earlier really, because when we discussed about the committees, I just wondered, at the moment we operate a standards committee system within the borough, and that operates for all the parishes as well. Will the actual standards committee for the town council come under the West Northampton Authority? And if it does, will we be getting any invite for our representatives to be on it, or any representatives from the town council or others to be on it? Like we do invite the parish councils to sit on the standards committee within the borough.
The West Northampton will have a standards committee and will have to have some parish representation. Leslie, my colleague from the County Association of Local Councils, is with us and may know more as to how the parish representative is appointed. I don't know if Leslie might be able to assist the committee chair.
Good evening, members. I would have to look into that as well, I'm afraid. It's not something that I've really come across, although I do know obviously that there are members on that panel, but how they're appointed, or you know, if they request specifically, or whether the elected members are approached directly, I don't know, so I'll have to come back to you on that.
But the direct answer is yes, there will have to be a standards committee. Yes, we'll be subject to it, and yes, West Northants would have to have some parish representative. As Leslie says, we'll have to come back to you on what the mechanism. It may not yet be been determined how the parishes will be represented.
Okay, thanks for that.
Right, anybody with anything else? No, okay. Well, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for coming along. Thank you to Leslie and to Maisie and to Richard, and I think Laurie must have gone. So thank you very much for supporting the meeting and coming along tonight, and thank you all for participating and for actually agreeing, signing off a huge amount of work that you know, will now set up all the systems and the offices, and sort of a big step forward. Right. Thank you very much, everyone.